Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 752 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Thursday, October 2nd, 2025, and it looks like it's a grayish day here at the Beaver Lodge, and some of the kids in the chat are saying that it's a cool day where they are only 4 degrees Celsius this morning, but expecting to have some warmer temperatures over the next few days. Not quite sure what it is today because I didn't go out this morning for my usual breath of fresh air before the show. I decided to get a couple of extra minutes of sleep because yesterday was a rehearsal day, and rehearsal day usually means going to bed a bit past my usual bedtime to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to do this show for you. So I decided to. The bed was so comfy and the pillow was so plush. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and Cubs, DAMFAM. How's your mental health doing today? I'm doing well. I've got a big day ahead of me, of course. I have to, I'm going to Ottawa after the show because I have a brief medical appointment, nothing major. Just I'm getting, if there's anybody hate watching us, I'm sorry to announce this, but I am getting some vaccines. So it's the third one in a series. So I have to go and get that. So nothing major, just some upkeep. As one would say, but I do have to go and get that, and then if everything goes well, that thing I've been teasing about, that interview that we will be able to bring you, that we are very excited about. We will be recording that at around 5 o'clock this evening, or late this afternoon, I should say. So very big day ahead, and then tomorrow morning after the show. I'll be popping in with the lovely and wonderful Lady Laura of the O Show for what has become a monthly visit. And then we will talk about things. She mentioned wanting to talk about Danielle, and I said, "Ooh, she makes me so mad this week. I might drop a couple of F-bombs because I did yesterday." But yeah, some wonderful moments ahead. And then when I get back home, my beaver sweetie and I have a date night because we're going to go see the new Downton Abbey movie. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then Saturday and Sunday will be more rehearsal time. And rehearsal yesterday went very well. For some reason, I don't know what's going on, but I'm normally when it comes to picking up choreography, that's always been the bane of my existence as a dancer. Is when you're going to auditions, they show you a pass relatively quickly, and you're supposed to pick it up in like 3 or 4 shows and then do it. And there's a lot of people that have that talent, and I just don't. It takes me a while to get it, but once I get it in my body, I can perform the living daylights out of it. So dance auditions are always a little tough. But I'm picking up the dance really quickly on this one, which is I'm happy about it, but it's kind of surprising. And it's the same thing for the music actually, because I don't read music. Uh, I understand a little bit of it, because I've been doing musicals for a while and sang in choir and a little bit, and you just pick up stuff by osmosis. But I don't really read music. If you show me a staff and you put a note on it and you say sing that note, I couldn't tell you for the life of me what it is. But once I hear it and I know where it is on the staff, then I can figure out the other notes relative to it, right? Um, but it takes a lot of work. If you look at my score, I've got little arrows go up and like it's got little words go down. It's like, nope, only a half step, same note, because sometimes I want to change the note, or so I put all these little markings and reminders to myself. So it takes me a while. And yesterday, there were fewer people at the rehearsal for the vocal part yesterday because some people had some work commitments, and there were only two basses. And when there are only two basses, I get a little nervous. Not as nervous as if I were alone, but and it was a song that we hadn't rehearsed in about 2 or 3 days because you rehearse things in blocks, and sometimes you do things for a little bit, and then you leave it there and you do something else, and then you come back to it. When we're rehearsing musicals, we don't do it in sequence. We do things all over the place, and then we put it all together. Um, so yeah, we uh, yesterday there was just two of us, and for the most part, I was confidently coming in and actually hitting the notes in harmonies because usually I get pulled off by hearing other notes. But I was able to focus and concentrate, and I'm picking up the music relatively quickly too, which is kind of interesting again. So, knock on wood, hope that that trend continues to be my friend. But normally, like I said, it's a lot more work getting those parts down for me, and so far, so good. I normally feel like in the first month that I'm behind everyone else, and then start catching up. And the first month is usually a bit of a frustrating experience for me in a musical until I finally start to get it and level up with everybody else that's there and starts stop sticking out like a sore thumb. But this one's going well. If I'm sticking out in any way, it's for good reasons. So yay me, yay me. Please, please, please continue. All right, kids and cats, let's take a little look here in the chat and see who's with us. We have Kit Grace here. Kit Grace was the one telling us that it's only 4 degrees Celsius where it is they are. Kit Bucky is here saying good morning also. Is Kit Uncover the News saying good morning. Kit Sharon is here. Hello, dear one. I hope your move went well. I hope that you are starting to make a bit of a home where it is you are now. I believe you moved to the East Coast, if I'm not mistaken. But Kit Sharon says, good morning, my gorgeous and fabulous Canadian family, DAMFAM. Ah, yes. And yes, Kit Uncover, noticing that we are very close to 27,000 subs, 26,900 when I looked this morning. So we're still growing. We have Kit Sharon saying, yeah, a little chilly here in Nova Scotia as well. So there, I was right there, East Coast. We have Kit Hyper T here saying, bom dia, gente. ¿Cómo está? Okay, bom dia, gente. ¿Cómo están todos nesta linda quinta-feira? And yeah, that one I can't guess. Good day, everyone. How is everyone? And nesta linda quinta-feira? I have no idea at all. Can't even guess based on on French. Linda might be on this. Oh, how's everybody on this beautiful day? Maybe Linda might be beautiful. Uh, yeah. Okay. That's my guess. That's my guess. You tell me how I did, Kid Hyper T. Kit Linda M is here. Uh, and Kit Linda clearly has a song in her head. I can't recognize it from the words, so I can't sing it. Um, We have Kit Argosy Acres here, hopefully with a bit of a birthday afterglow that still is enduring after a few days. Kit Elaine is here saying, "Good morning, everyone." Ah, Kit Argosy stating, and that's why trees are better than people. Yeah, I agree with you, Kit Argosy. Every now and then, um, sometimes hanging around with people really makes me appreciate the company of plants. Plants are kind of cool, you know? They don't talk back, they're great listeners, and they never trump your ace lead. Just saying. Uh, like I got that from Garfield or something. Kid Swanky Frankie is with us saying sup. Kid Chris is with us. Hello, good sir. Glad you are with us this morning. Uh, you'll probably be swearing with me today because we'll be speaking a little bit about Danielle. I believe that Kit Chris joins us from Alberta, if I'm not mistaken. We have the Breens with us. Good morning to you, fine folks. I hope you are doing well. Who else do we have in the chat? Kit Bucky is with us. Good morning to you, sir. Uh, oh, Kit Chris says he had a massive writing night last night. Separate letters went out to his premier, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Finance, the opposition leader, the dot, 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 dot. Good. Write those letters. Write those letters. Very, very important, as we keep on telling you on the book, because democracy is something we do section, right? When you write those letters, especially handwritten, but the typed ones are good. It gathers attention, the people that read those letters, right? And when a lot of them come in on a certain subject, then that gets to the attention of your elected representative, and maybe they will be inclined to take some action on it. Kid Argosy saying, I like Douglas's shirt today. Well, thank you very much. It's my shirt from the Vancouver Olympics 2010. And it's kind of amazing that it's still in such good shape 15 years later. They made the shirt well. All right. Who else do we have? Oh, also, Chris wrote the shadow education minister from the opposition and his MLA, all in preparation for the looming teacher strike here in Alberta. Yeah, good stuff. Glad you did that, and hope more people follow your lead there, Kit Chris, on that. We have Kit Nona Carole Dali saying good morning to us. There we go. And Kit Chris preempting. I guess I'm reading his mind because I'm getting to things he said before. I'm seeing it later. He says, "Big Twitter call to flood some inboxes." Indeed, see that's what it is. Using your power as an influencer in your own circle to try to generate some action. Um, Kid Chris understood the assignment. So, I'm a proud beaver, Papa. The kids, they grow up so fast. So proud. We have Kit Tavi G. Finally found you. Why is it so difficult to find lately? It's not difficult to find lately, Kit Tavi G. That's my bad, my fault. I've been starting the shows a little later because I've just been finding it harder to wake up on time with the later nights. I'm starting usually a little closer to 7:15 rather than 7, and therefore the description is sometimes not there at 7. So yes, you just have to keep on refreshing the YouTube page until it appears. But it's not you that's having trouble finding it. It's um, I guess, to use a crude term, me that's having being delayed in getting it up. Whatever double entendres there are totally intentional. We have Kit Janet S with us. I don't know if that's just a different or a kit that we normally have with us, or if this is a new kit. But if you are new to the Beaver Lodge, pull up a log and make yourself comfy. Stay a while. Welcome. And if you're not a new kid, still pull up a log and stay a while and make yourself comfortable and welcome. Doesn't matter. But we like to give a special shout out to new people on the chat when we spot them. Who else do we have with us? Is that everybody that crossed the plate? I'm seeing some names repeat here. And Kit Tom is with us. Good morning to you, good sir. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Kit Jenny is here. Hi, everyone. We have Kit Beho coming in with an opinion that would be considered interesting and a little counterculture for the show, considering that we have some house rules here about how we treat each other. And I guess that Kit Beho has not yet been informed of them yet. But hopefully, um, someone will instruct them. Who else do we have here in the chat? Let's see. Kit Kat is with us. Kit Miss Blue Ocean. Hello, dear one. So lovely to see you. Glad you are with us. And who else? We have Kit Todd with us. That's a new name for us. Saying nice to see Canadian streams. So I sit in here. Lovely to have you. Welcome. I hope that you find stuff here that resonates you and that you find the members of the DAMFAM very kind and welcoming. But it's glad to have a new Kit. Welcome. Welcome. Who else do we have with us? There's a lot of you. Kit Donna is here as well. Said morning, DAMFAM. And Kit Donna is the last one to slide across the plate for a good morning. All right, kids and cubs, let's get right into it. One thing I want to start with is a story that we were talking about yesterday. The whole thing about that kid, Evan Lee is his name, who was at the Alberta Next panel and got some very interesting, uh, had a very interesting experience because the moderator, as Evan Lee was asking what seemed to be a reasonable question, but of course with some passion, about the looming Alberta teachers' strike and how it could possibly affect him in some way. Well, he didn't really have time to finish his question before the moderator, Mr. McAllister, cut him off. Basically, said that his question was stupid or unintelligible when I don't know how he could actually state that, given that Mr. Lee didn't have a chance to finish the question. But based on what he had said to date, uh, I was understanding him perfectly, so I do not understand why Mr. McAllister couldn't. Basically, cut him off first. Two, basically called him stupid. Uh, Three, accused him of trying to create chaos. Three, two of very untrue statements, and um, that were very, very, very humiliating. Um, and then, after he did all that, because that clearly was insufficient, Mr. McAllister then suggested, in front of an audience with cameras rolling and with a live mic, that physical violence should be administered upon this child for daring to ask a question about their own education. Then we saw the sort of non-apology, where Bruce McAllister admits that he did said something that was not okay, but doesn't actually say the thing that he said that was not okay, and does not identify why it's not okay. And on this part here, Kids and Comes, I'm just going to take a little aside and explain to you that an apology, a real apology, usually contains four elements: the terms "I'm sorry" or "I apologize," which were there. Um, for what it is you are apologizing, Mr. McAllister was incredibly unspecific in that apology. Um, an acknowledgement of the damage or the harm that what you did caused. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry for having done this. I recognize that having done this had this impact. And then a commitment to change behavior This by stating specifically what it is that you are going to do to ensure that you show not only what you're going to do to make it such that not only that you say you're sorry, but that you show that you're sorry by not repeating that offending behavior again. And while Mr. McAllister had some type of vague statement about doing better next time, didn't actually say what it was he was going to do. So again, the apology, what it is you are sorry for, an acknowledgement of the harm caused by your actions, and a commitment to show that you are sorry by not repeating the same behavior and stating what it is that you are going to do to that effect. Yeah, a lot of that was missing from Mr. McAllister's apology. And then we had Danielle Smith slide in to say that for some reason that she was in a position to accept the apology and consider the matter closed. Which I don't know by what right or what standing she has. And once again, that's Danielle Smith with her usual narcissism, sliding herself, putting herself at the center of something, and being judge, jury, and executioner here, and delivering apologia and absolution to Mr. McAllister. But nowhere in there does there seem to be an apology given to the young man who was humiliated and told that violence should be committed upon him. So Bruce McAllister, it seems, if he apologized to anyone, was Danielle for maybe creating a situation for which she had to hold a press conference, which she could just wash it away. That's not an apology. Well, it seems that Evan Lee, according to our good friends at the Breakdown, decided to use social media to make his point nonetheless. So Evan Lee wrote this. Hello, everyone. I am the high school student in this video. First of all, I would like to thank you for the support from fellow citizens who personally came up to me after the panel today to online comments. I am extremely grateful that there are still those in our province willing to stand up to unfair treatment and defend open dialogue, which was apparently the mandate of Alberta Next. It's honestly hilarious how far Danielle Smith and those around her will go, and I think Bruce, the moderator, needed to get spanked more in childhood because how did he even come up with that? And then a laugh emoji. For anyone interested in what I said after the mic was cut, I essentially asked why the UCP hands out $461 million to private schools, funding their tuitions, which serve 5% of Albertans, by the way, with 70% of what taxpayers provide to the public system with. In fact, this figure is expected to increase to $544 million in the 2027-2028 fiscal year. That's a 30% rise compared to the 6% that ATA teachers would get if they had somehow accepted the recent diabolical offer. I simply cannot comprehend any logical reason for the government to be giving tax dollars to private institutions, and I am gravely concerned that this is the path that healthcare will also go on. Moreover, Alberta posted a forecast deficit of $6.5 billion, down from an $8.3 billion surplus last year. While I understand the volatility of our oil and gas commodities, this is not responsible governance whatsoever. Yeah, this sounds. I'm so far in 2 paragraphs into this, or 3 paragraphs into this, and a totally unhinged person that doesn't have any method or rigor to their thought process and only silly things to say. I think Bruce McAllister was guilty of a little premature enunciation here because this seems to be a person that is very well organized in their thoughts and has researched things and is bringing data, facts, and logic. No wonder Mr. McAllister was so upset. Moving on. Alberta education is in triage. Since 2019, I have never been in a class with less than 35 students, save for one specialized French higher level IB course. I have experienced firsthand the struggles that special needs students go through and the lengths that my teachers go to in order to try to provide help to them, yet their efforts are in vain. All this while teachers have had a 6% salary boost since 2013 versus an inflation rate of 30%. One does not need to be an adult to understand the severity of the situation. However, our province's learning used to have a reputation. While I applied to universities this fall, many of them still view our curriculum as among the most rigorous in the country, and as such, BC and Ontario schools still give me a 4% grade average boost. I believe I'm speaking for all Albertans when I say we want to still be regarded highly in the future. We rank dead last in Canada for education spending, but the ATA has given us an opportunity to fight back. Now is the time to act. I urge each and every one of my peers in Alberta schools to stand up and support their teachers during the strike. Students stand in solidarity with our mentors and role models. Personally, I'm in the midst of organizing a walkout in Calgary and will post more details soon. Thank you. Boom. Evan Lee is doing democracy, putting his body in the game. This is a young man who should be commended for that which it is he is doing. Instead, berated. Berated. Really, really interesting. Now, kits and cubs, um, there are some views out there about certain things that are circulating. Some of them funny, some of them less. One of the funnier ones is, well, somebody decided to do this, create a Simpsons-like character of Bruce McAllister with a big paddle in his hand, uh, with the Alberta flag behind him, and it's standing behind a podium that says Alberta Next Panel Spanky McAllister. Yeah. Or as also acceptable, Bruce McPaddles. I think Spanky goes well for Danielle. Sourpuss Spanky Smith, because clearly Danielle Smith approves of spanking. She keeps on saying this thing about respect, but she keeps on forgetting that respect is supposed to be a two-way street. Respect is not something that we show up and get on our knees and offer her while she keeps doing whatever it is she does to us. Not sure anybody taught Danielle that. So, as this is coming about, um, a journalist, Mr. I think is Don Red again, which has been surprising us lately, with willing to take some shots at Danielle Smith and UCP lately. We read two editorials from him a couple of weeks ago, but another one where Mr. Braid gets it very well, and I'm going to read it into the record because it deserves it. The opinion piece appeared in the Calgary Herald, and it's called Braid, Student speaks out at Alberta next session, gets referred for a spanking. That was some weird revealing moment at Monday's Alberta Next session when a high school student named Evan Lee got up to ask a question. What followed was a stunning display of dismissive arrogance from the heart of the UCP government. Oh, and by the way, kits and cubs, just in case for some people find that it is relevant, Evan Lee's last name is not spelled L-E-E, but L-I. So, not sure if that had anything to do with the type of response he got. Sometimes we have to wonder. So let's start that again. That was some weird revealing moment at Monday's Alberta Next session when a high school student named Evan Lee got up to ask a question. What followed was a stunning display of dismissive arrogance from the heart of the UCP government. Moderator Bruce Spanky McAllister. Ooh, that hurts. If even Don Braid is putting it in his editorial, that one's going to stick for a while. Moderator Bruce Spanky McAllister, who makes $184,000 a year running Premier Danielle Smith's Calgary office, cut the student off and said he should be turned over his parents' knee. It started when the student said, quote, "Hi, my name is Evan Lee. I'm a Calgary high school student. Like many high school students, I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to the upcoming Alberta's teacher strike. Just an hour ago, they voted 89.5% in favor of striking. And my question is why? Why is the government handing out four?" And the mic suddenly went dead. Lee was cut off. Leaning casually on his moderator podium, McAllister said, Here's the thing, Evan. I applaud you coming here to speak. I don't applaud how you're trying to speak. It's not making any sense, so we're going to move along. I think the problem for Mr. McAllister is that Mr. Lee, as evidenced by what we just read that he had wrote in the social media, was making a little too much sense. and was about to make a very good point that was going to hit hard. And Mr. McAllister, more um, uh, bought off ref than chair or moderator, decided that he needed to intervene. Some jeering ensued. McAllister then said, "Okay, I know you'd love some chaos, but your parents should turn you over your." Well, he actually said, "Okay, I know you'd love some chaos, but your parents should turn you over your sick knee." Clearly meant their knee, but was too flustered to get his sentence out correctly. At this point, many in the audience erupted. "Rude, rude," cried one woman. It sure was, as well as condescending and incorrect. Young Lee was never given a chance to make sense. McAllister looked like a privileged government man speaking power to truth, and he raised a question. Is this how they think of students in the Premier's office? Oh, yes, yes. This is how. Definitely. And there's more to come to prove that. McAllister is a senior aide to Smith on policy and communication. He's a former Wildrose MLA, longtime friend of the Premier, and a skilled veteran of media, including years working at Global News. He's not exactly a fumbling newbie in public settings. On Tuesday, McAllister issued a bland apology of sorts, making no mention of the subject or what he'd actually said. Quote, "Last night, while moderating the Alberta Next panel, I made an inappropriate remark to a participant. I regret saying it and I apologize. I'm committed to ensuring these conversations remain respectful and constructive." And of course, yesterday we showed you a whole clip uh, from August. We're in October now, so this thing happened late September with Mr. Lee, but August, so a whole month and a half before this incident happened, of a, a clip of many incidents of Mr. McAllister rolling his eyes, cutting people off, and getting into arguments, cutting them down at the knees, insulting them, belittling them, degrading them. But he's committed to ensuring these conversations remain respectful and constructive. He never started. I'm not sure where he can say with a straight face that he has that commitment because he has never displayed it. Interesting. At Tuesday's news conference about helping parents during the strike, Smith said, "That's good enough for her." Bruce made an off color comment. He apologized. "I consider it at an end. We always take the view that we have to engage with people respectfully. That's my expectation of my staff, and I asked them to do better next time," said Danielle Smith, she of the part, she, sorry, I am so excited that I'm having trouble getting my sentences out correctly. But that's her expectation of her staff, and she's asked him to do better next time. Of course, there was only one next time left because there's only one panel left, one stop on the tour. But and We always take the view that we have to engage with people respectfully. That's the expectation of my staff. And then we've seen Danielle Smith many, 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 many times try to hold Canada hostage because that's apparently engaging with people respectfully. And then should she have that member of her team, not on her staff, but another elected official, Jennifer something, who is the lady who compared trans kids to pieces of shit in a chocolate chip cookie. But we're supposed to believe that the UCP always takes the view that we have to engage with people respectfully. Yeah. Jennifer Johnson, I think her name is, isn't it? Yeah. Um, but Jennifer Johnson is still. So that's a really interesting view that you have to engage with people respectfully, Danielle. When does that start? I asked the premier if that was sufficient, considering McAllister had suggested a parental pounding for a high school student, which I said yesterday I believe is a crime, and a couple of kids confirmed, indeed, in the chat afterwards that yes, calling upon physical violence to be committed upon another person, inciting people to commit violence upon another person is indeed a crime. Well, none of us are perfect, and I hate that as a get out of jail free card. None of us are perfect. Yeah, none of us are perfect is not a hall pass to be able to wash away every unacceptable behavior. As we've said on the show before, Danielle, nobody, nobody expects perfection. Nobody's perfect, so I guess we can just wash it away. No, no, no. Nobody expects perfection, but we do expect competence and decency. And Mr. McAllister was neither competent nor decent. Nobody's perfect does not absolve you. Well, none of us are perfect, and it's a very stressful environment to be in to be moderating events like that. Yeah, and that's why he gets paid $184,000 a year to compensate him for that stress. Not to mention probably hotel rooms and foods and per diem while he's on that tour. I'm sure the stress that comes with the job is being appropriately compensated. Well, none of us are perfect, and it's a very stressful environment to be in moderating events like that. And he made an offensive comment and apologized for it this morning. So I told them that we have one more forum that we need to do, and we just have to make sure that our communication with everybody who participates in that is respectful. You should have made sure that before you started. You should have made sure that before you even entered your name in that, you put through your name in the hat, to become leader of the party. Respect is not a term we associate with you, Danielle. Braid continues. That meeting was stressful precisely because the teachers had just decided to strike. Teacher supporters were in the audience, and Evan Lee was among them. He's organizing a student walkout. McAllister freaked in part because the government wants these sessions to be exclusively about Alberta's relationship with Ottawa. When his mic was silenced, Lee was about to ask why the government pays $460 million to private schools while public schools are deprived. A good question, although asking it can get you spanked. Lee said later on Reddit, quote, I am extremely grateful that there are still those in our province willing to stand up to unfair treatment and defend open dialogue, which was apparently the mandate of Alberta Next. It's honestly hilarious now how far Danielle Smith and those around her will go. And once again, extremely grateful to those who were willing to stand up to unfair treatment, none of which were any of the members of that panel. Even after people in the audience went rude, 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 nobody on that panel stood up, said something in defense of Mr. Lee, or got up from that panel and walked away and said, sorry, I'm out. They all just sat there and let it happen. And we know what the definition of evil is, right? Good people who choose to do nothing. Or people, let me rephrase that. People who, when they would describe themselves to other people, would call themselves good people who choose to do nothing. And that's what every panel member, including the premier, who should have exercised leadership in that moment by telling Mr. McAllister that he went too far, and perhaps even relieving him of his duties on the spot, telling him to go take a time out and gather himself because clearly he had lost control of himself. Nobody on that stage did anything, but all of them, I'm sure, are collecting their honoraria or whatever it is. Extremely disappointing. On Tuesday evening, Lee was set to do a YouTube live with NDP leader Naheed Nenshi. McAllister's blunder ran wild on social media, blurring Smith's announcement of $150 a week per child for parents with students under 12. Yes, kids and cubs. Danielle Smith announced that she was going to be paying parents $30 per day of strike per child for when the teachers would be on strike to compensate them for the hardship that they will go through. Now, um, put a pin in that because we'll get back to that because that was a very interesting announcement. Premiers will generally tolerate a mistake like that from a loyal and trusted aide once, is how Braid commented that. Again, when you call upon for physical violence to be committed upon another citizen, and a child no less, um, you should not, you should not tolerate. And it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. Let's not dismiss this as a mistake. It was an incredibly dumb lack of judgment, discernment had left that man's body. This was not a mistake. This is a character issue. It's a character issue. It's a lack of decency for a fellow human being. It's not a mistake. And that should never be tolerated. Not even once. No matter how loyal. That's a, oh, dude, you just pooped all over my brand. Sorry. Love you. You're a friend, but you gotta go. Cut. You protect the brand. Now, Danielle Smith's brand is that she's okay with adults calling for younger people to be spanked. She's okay with public humiliation. And she's okay with censorship. That's now what's associated with her brand. You always protect the brand. So, Danielle Smith decided to have a press conference about how she was going to help us during the strike, according to Devin DeCooper from also the Calgary Herald. Hold on. I'm just going to make sure that I can get that article. I have to go to make sure that I get on the other side of that paywall. There we go. The Alberta government announced Tuesday that it will provide financial assistance and learning resources to students and parents in the event of a teacher strike, which is set to begin October 6th. Parents and guardians of students aged 12 and under will be eligible to receive $150 per week per student for the duration of the strike to offset the cost of childcare, learning supports, and other activities. Finance Minister Nate Horner said funding for the program would come from redirecting unused educational grants, particularly from unspent salaries, while teachers are on strike. So, in other words, the money that they would be paying teachers if they were in the class and not on strike, they are going to redirect some of that money to give to parents who will now have kids at home because of the strike, because the government of Alberta decided that after inflation went up 30% over the last 10 years, that all teachers were entitled to was an extra 6%, and that they should be able to do a great job by our children while wondering pretty much every second of the day how it is they are going to make ends meet and whether or not they'll be able to put food on the table, because that definitely makes it such that a teacher, right, is in the best possible conditions to deliver the best possible education to your child. So that money that is supposed to pay teacher salary, is rather than setting it aside for when the strike is eventually resolved, and let's say teachers get the province to move from 6%, let's say to 9%, which is still not enough, but let's say they do that, to cover the extra 3%, because clearly the Alberta government feels that they have the money in the budget for 6%, but not the extra. So instead of taking those savings and putting them aside and using them to cover whatever increase, they are going to take that money and find other uses for it. And the other use for that money is essentially to buy off parents, to bribe parents for their support for the government of Alberta rather than supporting the teachers with $30 a day per child, which so basically the government of Alberta right here is confessing that they do indeed have the money. They just would rather spend it on anything other but teachers who are alone with your children for about a third of the day, of the waking hours of the day, 5 days a week. They have better uses for that, like PR wars, advertising campaigns against teachers, or to bribe parents to not be on the teacher side during the strike. Here, we don't want to pay teachers, but we're happy to pay you so that you don't get too mad because the fact that we can't come to an arrangement with our teachers. Be mad at them instead, not us. So they have money for bribes and PR stunts. They just don't have money for the actual teachers, who again are taking care of your children. But Danielle Smith loves to talk about child safety. hmm Okay. The announcement followed. Oh, sorry. That money will be used to support families as they determine how to navigate life with schools closed, Horner said at a news conference. Yes, because um, $30 per day. Let's say, for example, parents had to put kids in a daycare. Let's say, not sure if we have got teenagers, they need to put them in daycare, but let's say $30 a day will definitely do that. And there are so many uh, spots, so many excess spots, right, for all these students to go to during the strike. It's a bribe. It's a bribe. How's $30 a day going to help parents navigate life with schools closed if some can't go to work because they need to be home to supervise their children? It's a bribe. The announcement followed teachers' rejection of the latest proposed agreement between the Alberta Teachers Association and the Teachers Employers Bargaining Association. On Monday, the ATA announced that 89.5% of teachers voted against the offer because it sucked. Minister of Education Dimitrios Nicolaitis speaks to media in Calgary on. Oh, sorry, that's a caption for a photo that has the same text font as the article. So that's an error in the article there. Quote, instead of doing the very thing that teachers have been asking for, investing in our classrooms, the government has now promised parents $30 per day per student when teachers are on strike. This amounts to almost twice as much as teachers are paid to teach those same students in their classrooms, said ATA President Jason Schilling. In other words, the government would rather pay parents to wait out a strike than pay teachers to prevent one. Again, it's not that they don't have the money. They just don't think teachers, and therefore your kids or smaller classroom sizes, are worth it. According to the ATA, the average teacher is paid $478 per operational day, with those newer to profession earning less. When divided by a class size estimate of 30 students, that amounts to $16 per student per day. The province has also created, but they got 20 for you during the strike. 30, sorry, per day for you during the strike. The province has also created a free online toolkit to assist with at-home learning if families so choose, which includes a week-by-week guide for core subjects. Quote, we understand that the possibility of a teacher strike brings uncertainty and concern for families, said Dimitrios Nicolaitis, Alberta's Minister of Education and Childcare. That's why Alberta's government is supporting families with practical tools and resources to help maintain their child's learning if schools are closed. So in other words, if you want your child taught by an actual certified teacher, that's $16 a day. But if you choose, let's say, if you have a job, to stay home from your job because you need to be home, to homeschool your kids instead, you get $30 per day. whether you have an educational or pedagogical background or not. You get 30. Teachers get 16. They're willing to pay more for, and no offense to parents, but an inferior product. Yeah. Okay. This is good. This will keep the Alberta advantage allegedly going. Quote, this parent toolkit offers flexibility, choice, and curriculum aligned materials to empower families, ease the pressure they're facing, and keep students engaged. No. How does it ease the pressure on a family to now have the parents teaching curriculum with which they may not be familiar to students, especially if parents have to not go to the regular job, which probably pays them more? How does this ease the pressure and how does this empower anyone? This is word salad. Megan Parisian, vice president of the Alberta Schools Council Association, said the short term relief offered by the financial assistance program, quote, certainly doesn't outweigh the long term effects of chronic underfunding. The things that we're talking about today are not just about today, she said. They're about tomorrow and 5 years and 10 years down the road. Parisian said she's heard nothing but support from teachers from other parents. Quote, we have classrooms that are overcrowded. We have students in makeshift open air classrooms with weird partitions that might be fabric or otherwise. They're using infrastructure that was never meant to be classroom, she said. There's also the basic resources and supports that teachers are asking for as part of the collective bargaining process that, if not, are not addressed, are really going to create some lack, and without them, we're setting students up to fail from the start. When parents are looking at the state of their classrooms, they just want what's best for their kids. As the strike approaches, parents' main concerns are the potential for learning loss and childcare solutions, but Parisian said she's happy to see communities and organizations coming together to find solutions. Quote, it's a reminder that our schools are not just the physical building. They are not just curriculum. They are communities, and communities in time of struggle support one another, she said. Really, what this all boils down to is supporting our students and making sure that they have the tools they need to be successful and thrive in the future. Many community groups, organizations such as the YMCA are offering additional programming for the duration of the strike to help ease family stress. Quote, these programs and support an extension of those we provide throughout the year, aligned with our purpose as a charity that serves the needs of our community and provides fun, active experiences for children and youth, YMCA Calgary said in a statement. All 6 YMCA locations will be offering 3-hour registered programs for kids aged 6 to 9, with additional staff added to accommodate increased numbers in existing drop-in visits for youth aged 10 to 17. Registration is set to open Wednesday at 10 a.m., and additional capacity will be added as needed to meet demand. Quote, YMCA Calgary has been supporting families across the city for over 120 years, and we are quite used to adding and modifying our programs to meet community need, the statement said. Both the Calgary Board of Education and the Calgary Catholic School District said they will be keeping their communities informed in the coming days about what to expect during the strike. Nicolaitis said Tuesday that the province will move forward with hiring 1,500 educational assistants. Quote, this commitment to hire 1,500 EAs was made alongside the teacher agreement, and despite the outcome of the agreement, we are proceeding with this commitment, he said. These professionals will help meet student needs and ease the pressure on teachers. Premier Danielle Smith said, quote, it's not too late to reach an agreement with the ATA before the strike date. Quote, we would like to see a negotiated settlement, and we would like to be able to avoid job action, Smith said. We hope that they take that seriously, call it off, and then come back to the table. Mm, 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 mm-hmm. Okay. Um, so yeah, a couple of comments that came to me uh, over, and particularly good ones, I would say. Uh, some of them even you can see people um, going out of their way to be unkind, which is interesting. Not surprising at all, but very interesting. Um, one person um, turned around, said, teachers don't do a better job just because we pay them more. How about teacher, do your damn job? Maybe you will earn a raise. Yes, because over the last 10 years, teachers did absolutely nothing to earn a raise, particularly as they were doing the job spectacularly well, as inflation went up 30%, and their salaries hadn't moved much at all. To the person who said that, actually, teachers do a better job because we pay them more, especially when they're being underpaid. As I mentioned earlier, given that salaries haven't kept up with inflation, and by a lot, I'd counter argue that not constantly having to worry about how one will make ends meet frees up a lot of mind and emotional bandwidth to do a better job for our kids. If that's your point of view, that teachers don't do a better job just because we pay them more, um, you have to look at what they're being paid and how that allows them to live at the moment. And yeah, there are circumstances where paying people more actually does help them to do a better job. Another one, particularly unkind. Dear Eager Beaver, the money is coming from wages not being paid to teachers while they choose not to show up for work. We don't pay people to skip work. We pay them when they show up and do what is required of them per their job description. Okay. If what you say is true, doesn't that make things even worse? Because if it's supposed to be about the money, then one would expect Smith to set aside those savings to help cover whatever increases eventually agreed to, but instead the government has found new uses for it. Clearly an unkind attempt at a point, as highlighted by the utterly unnecessary last sentence. We don't pay people to skip work. We pay them when they show up and do what is required of them per their job description. So going out of the way to be unkind. Because not only is that point irrelevant, but it also boomerangs to offer a perfect illustration of how the Smith government delights in taking from teachers to spend on partisan priorities. Thank you for proving my point. I I just don't understand this this thing. It's like it's literally shut up and sing, shut up and dribble, just shut up and teach. I can't make rent or buy food. Shut up and teach. 'Cause I'm really worried about how I'll be able to make ends meet, whether or not I'll even be able to stay in this profession. More money won't help you do a better job. Just do your damn job. The utter lack of care and compassion. And one of these characters, I'm going to call, because um, I'm not sure whether or not these are true people on these accounts, claims to have a master's in education. Okay, sure. Yeah. So, yeah, Danielle Smith clearly showing everyone in Alberta and throughout Canada that what her priorities are. Because your priorities are the things for which you make time and the things for which you spend your money. You want to know what people's real priorities are? They can tell you, oh, we have no bigger priority than this. Watch where they spend their time and spend their money. That's their real priorities. Danielle Smith has been spending her time vilifying teachers, making offers that are insulting, and now, in the face of a strike, saying, "Oh, well, you know that money that was going to go to you, we're going to take that and we're going to direct that to parents instead." So it's not about the money. It's never been about the money. Okay, moving on. Also, about money, but a bit of a different thing here, because we have the budget coming up on November 4th. And the federal liberals are in a bit of an interesting position in that um, they need three votes from other places because they're in a minority parliament. That's assuming that everybody's there on budget day, nobody's caught by an illness or whatnot, to pass it. But based on the way that they've been talking about the budget so far, it's not necessarily certain that they have natural allies. They've been talking about an austerity budget, which certainly does not make the NDP happy. Doesn't really make the Bloc Québécois happy either. That word austerity seems to have a certain resonance in the province of Quebec in Francophone culture that is gets people's backs up. Uh, and well, the Conservatives clearly are making a point that they don't intend to support anything, and the Greens have never supported a federal budget uh, in principle because taking the steps that the Greens think that we need to take to make sure that we are taking care of the environment and responding appropriately to climate change, considering the urgency of the situation. Well, that just never materializes in a budget, and therefore they can't support it. So the Liberals, despite only being 3 votes away from a majority, seem to have no natural allies on the budget. So it would be something else that would have to come into play to get the support of one of the parties. Now we have realities that the NDP are in the middle of a leadership race and are definitely in financial straits and probably are not in the best position to go into an election, even though they're talking a good game and saying, well, if they do, so be it. The Bloc Québécois, if they did want to go into an election, it would probably be sooner rather than later, because in October 2026, there's going to be a provincial election that, so far, according to public opinion polls, will bring in a PQ government, which is something the Bloc Québécois really, really wants. And they will be wanting to dedicate a lot of their resources to help making that happen. So waiting for later in the year would probably not be, or early next year would probably not be a good time if they wanted to go again. It would be to go now. The Conservatives, if they truly think that another election right now, that the Canadians have seen enough bad things about Mark Carney to make them not want to vote Liberal again, would definitely want to go now. But Pierre does have a leadership review coming and doesn't seem to have anything new to offer if he was going to go into a campaign now. And if he did go into a campaign now and lost again, that would definitely be the end of him. And so Pierre has to weigh. Would he like to roll the dice now and maybe have his chance of being prime minister come more quickly than it would have otherwise? But the potential consequence of that is that him continue to be able to suckle off the public teat and live in the best public housing that taxpayer money could buy. Even better than the prime minister, because, well, we don't have an official residence for the prime minister, do we? 24 sex. It's not happening. So, yeah, with a chauffeur and a chef and all his travel paid and all that kind of stuff. And boy, does he rack up that travel, doesn't he? If you look at the expense reports, he would have to give all that up much sooner than he would otherwise if he decided to go now and lost again. So maybe Pierre is not all into that because he seems to really love the taste of the milk from the public teat, doesn't he? So different considerations, but all of them positioning, and all four parties having a reason uh, to not support a budget that is going to have a lot of additional spending and is probably going to have some austerity measures and will definitely not have the elements that are in there to do what it is that we need to do to respond appropriately to climate change. So there's actually no reason for any of these parties to actually support that type of budget, which could be a situation of liberals maybe trying to engineer their own defeat so that they can try again. A lot of people are looking at public opinion polling and saying, ooh, well, maybe that is not a good idea because public opinion polling has started to narrow. If you look at the latest Nanos poll, for example, Nanos had been showing in the few months after the election, especially when Pierre was not in the House of Commons, leads of 9 or 10, 11, sometimes 12 points for the Liberals. Well, that's down to 4 as the NDP vote has gone back up to 12. And a lot of people are looking at that and saying, well, hey, maybe that means that it would be a much closer race this time. And on the surface, if you were looking at the numbers, yeah, you could, one could say that. But as you know, kids and cubs, I like to look a little deeper at those numbers. And I'm going to show you them right now, the ones from Nanos. And again, the caveat, this is one specific poll. I always recommend looking at the aggregate numbers rather. But in this specific case, given that Danos was so far in the lead and the lead is tightened, which will definitely have an effect on the aggregate numbers, I'm going to use this as an example here. So I'm it to you here. The Liberals got 44 in the election. They're now at 41. The Conservatives got 41 during the election. They're now at 37. So it's not that the Conservatives are more popular. They dropped 4 points. They've even dropped 1 point more in party popularity than the Liberals. So it's the Liberal lead over, even though, you know, how would I put it? Based on previous Nanos polls, the spread is only 4% rather than 12. But if we're basing on the results of last election, this poll here is still showing the Liberals with a larger lead over the Conservatives would score a larger victory, marginally larger, but larger one this time around. What we are seeing, though, is that the NDP vote has gone back up 6% to 12. So I'm reading this and I'm saying that all that NDP vote that went Liberal in the last federal election to make it such that the Liberal Party is the party that got the most votes in a federal election ever in Canadian history, because, well, given that there's no imminent election at the moment and that Mark Carney is talking about austerity and all that kind of stuff, well, that vote that was sort of lent to the NDP to prevent Pierre Poilièvre, who nobody wants as prime minister, from being there, well, it's being parked back with the NDP for now because there's nothing to lose. But if we had an election coming if the budget gets voted down on the 4th of November, which is like a month and 2 days from now, and we're going back in an election and Pierre is still the leader, do you think that extra 6% would stay with the NDP because people are fine with Pierre now as prime minister? NDP voters would now be fine with Pierre as prime minister after seeing Carney for 6 months? Has Pierre done a single thing that would give you the opinion that he would be a better prime minister? No, that 6% would flow back, right? It would be again Operation Stop Pierre, because those fundamental dynamics have not changed within. So you're going to see a lot of people. Oh, the lead is narrowing. The lead is narrowing in significant ways. Maybe it's time to go now. Those numbers are still indicating a bigger win for the Liberals. And if we're looking at approval ratings, Pierre is still personally in the toilet. He is a drag on his party, whereas Mark Carney is still, even though the party itself is dropping a couple of points, which is when one would expect following, the honeymoon period and all that kind of stuff. And, when you go back to the polling thing where you're in the kicking the tires phase more than anything else. But his personal numbers are still good. So if we went to another election, right? And it's not like Trump is helping the conservatives because Donald Trump is still talking 51st state. So that hasn't gone away. He's not talking about it as much, but on strategic moments for Trump, he keeps on bringing it up. It's still there as an undercurrent. That reality hasn't changed. The fundamental dynamics have not changed. So there's a lot of posturing right now about an election. Oh, I just couldn't support that budget. And some people trying to position themselves early so that they don't have to take a difficult decision. And one of the people doing that is the Bloc cause Yves-François Blanchet, um, who yesterday had a press availability and had some very interesting things to say. And one of those interesting things to say was that without having seen the budget yet, of course, uh, putting out his marker as quickly as possible to indicate that he doesn't believe that there is a situation or a context, he doesn't see one coming, uh, during which the 22 members of the Bloc Québécois would be able to support this budget. And the reason, however, is rather interesting because all of a sudden, Yves-François Blanchet is looking at the fact that there will be additional money and is basically claiming um, that he has concerns over the debt and the deficit, which strikes me as particularly interesting because I'm not sure exactly why the Bloc Québécois would be concerned specifically about the debt and the deficit, given that it's not exactly um, like they first have the best interests of Canada in mind. Number one. Number two, it's not a part, given that they how would I put it, represent Quebec interests first. Um, I'm not sure uh, why they would be concerned about debt and deficit. They want more for Quebec and don't really care about the impact on Canada. So, um, but all of a sudden, Yves-François Blanchet is suddenly behaving like um, Pierre Poilièvre, talking about debts and deficits. And, oh no, we can't support that. That would be just this is too spending. So stealing Pierre Poilievre's job. And if Yves-François Blanchet decides to take Pierre Poilievre's act on being a debt and deficit crusader, he's going to do a much better job of it than Pierre Poilievre because Yves-François Blanchet is a man, despite the fact that I do not like him and I've had personal interactions with him that made it clear beyond any reasonable doubt that this man is clearly a racist. Um, uh, is a man that has some rigor and is somewhat intellectually cogent, whereas Pierre is not. However, this stance from Yves-François Poilièvre is a whiplash. It's a whiplash inducing flip flop because if you remember correctly, Yves-François Blanchet's one of his main things that he wanted out of the last federal election was for the federal government to increase OAS payments for seniors who are 65 to 74 by 10% a year to match the boost that had been given for seniors 74 and 75 and older, and increase the guaranteed income supplement income clawback. So you're allowed to make some money if you're receiving GIS, and if you're allowed to make $5,000 from employment income a year before there's a clawback. Wanted to raise that to 6,500. The cost of those measures would have added $16.1 billion to the debt over 5 years. So in April, Mr. Blanchet was perfectly fine with adding $16.1 billion in spending annually and growing because giving that our demographics are such that we are in an aging population and that over the next few years, there's going to be many more people joining the ranks of the retired than joining the workforce, especially if we keep immigration stable or decreasing. Um, that number is going to keep growing past 5 years if you make that permanent. Uh, He's perfectly willing to add that to the debt a couple of months ago, but not willing now to have things that would add to the debt and deficit. Interesting change of position from Monsieur Yves-François Poilièvre. Clearly, the value of Monsieur Blanchet's word has significantly decreased over the past few months. Now, if one is, according to iPolitics here, it says that Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet said he's concerned about the massive budget deficit projections, telling reporters on Wednesday that he doesn't believe his party would back any fiscal plan bleeding that much red ink. Quote, "It looks like madness," he said, adding that there's been no consultations with the federal government on the budget. And I think that's maybe what more the problem is. Yves-François Blanchet is not feeling seen or valued enough, that his opinion is important enough. Now, this is admittedly, if this close to the budget, the federal government has not reached out to the Bloc Québécois to consult with them. That would probably be, in all honesty, a bit of an own goal on the part of the Liberals, because you really should do that, just as a matter of course. But it seems that there's been no outreach to the Bloc leader, and therefore this might be a little bit of nose out of joint more than anything else. Yves-François Blanchet and Pierre Poilièvre do share certain things, because during the election campaign, that thing that Pierre is doing now, Mark Carney goes all over the place and takes a lot of trips, but he doesn't get a lot done. What has he got to show for all his stuff that he's been doing? That so-called economic genius. Well, that's what Yves-François Blanchet was doing during the election campaign, if you remember the debate, right? Or the debates, I should say. Going there on the podium says, "Well, Mark Carney keeps on saying that he has this. Well, I've seen no proof of this. I've seen no proof." So, um, the Bloc and the Conservatives actually have a lot in common with regard to showing outward disdain for the competence and reputation of Mr. Carney, trying to frame Mr. Carney as someone who walked in and promised and said, "Hey, I'm an economic genius. I can do this." When that's not what he said. He said, "These are specific times that call for a specific skill set, and I happen to have that skill set, and I'm happy to put it to use for the benefit of the nation." But it's not like he was standing over there and says, it's like this, "Don't worry, I've got this. I absolutely guarantee you." The guy's a banker. Bankers are inherently conservative. For a central banker to step in front of the mic and say, "I promise you, despite the fact that there's a whole bunch of people from a whole bunch of other nations and other things that can happen in the world in which I have absolutely no control, that can make decisions that would thwart me, I promise you that I can achieve something that is pretty damn difficult to achieve, despite the objections and the obstacles and everything else that everybody else will throw in my way." I doubt that someone who has a inherently, genuinely conservative nature would be making those promises. So things that Mark Carney have said uh, have been grossly distorted and misrepresented by these two people. And now both of them are pretending to be concerned about the debt and the deficit, when we know that Pierre Poilièvre himself spends like a drunken sailor. And like I said, Yves-François Blanchet was perfectly fine with adding over $16 billion over 5 years for one line item. One line item. The Liberals campaign on bringing the deficit to $62 billion, but last week the interim parliamentary budget officer projected the deficit would increase to $68.5 billion for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. A recent report from La Presse floated the possibility for the deficit to surpass $100 billion, while the C.D. Howe Institute, a public policy think tank, projected the number to exceed $92 billion. And these are numbers, and these are statements and projections and whatnot that in the short term hurt the federal Liberals, but in the long term will help them, because if indeed the deficit comes in at only $6 billion more than projected, 68.5 rather than 92 or 100, then the Liberal government would be able to, for a few weeks, saying, "Well, everybody was saying we would go to 100 and whatnot. Like this, we came in at 68.5. Look how reasonable and responsible we are while we're getting all this stuff done and pivoting the economy." So, yeah, let other people suggest that these deficits would be monstrously much larger than it actually might be, and then claim credit for having shown a lot of fiscal restraint while doing the necessary heavy lifting to pivot and reorient the economy. So, like I said, not good news right now for the Liberals, but could be better news if that actual number comes way below the wildest and most onerous of the predictions. Later in the day, NDP interim leader Don Davies said that he doesn't like the government's talk of austerity as the Fed's plan to cut spending to help balance the operational budget by 2029. He wants the Liberals to make investments in healthcare, affordable housing, and employment, warning of the significant job crisis in this country. Davies said he met with Prime Minister Mark Carney on Wednesday. Prior to that, Mr. Davies was saying, "Yes, I have no idea why it is that the Prime Minister would want to meet with me. Of course, you know why the Prime Minister would want to meet with you as a budget is coming along, and he only needs 3 votes. Come on, come on, Don." Ah, the thing about politics, right, is like I understand that there's a game that you gotta play, right? But I just wish that they could come up with better lines. I have no idea why the prime minister would want to talk to me, really. Because at home, I see a very obvious one. There's a budget coming up and he needs 3 votes. You guys got 7. Really? You can't think of a reason for which the prime minister would want to talk to you? Because, I have no problem figuring it out. I have no problem figuring it out whatsoever. Oh boy. Okay. Uh, but yes, interesting moves from the Bloc Québécois. The Bloc Québécois in the last parliament did this often near the end, coming out first saying that there's no way that they could support this, so therefore forcing Jagmeet Singh into the corner of once again having to swallow himself, despite saying that the government had betrayed us and everything. But I'm still going to support it because I can't go to an election now. And making Jagmeet Singh look ineffective. But I'm not sure who it is that I'm guessing that the Bloc Québécois is just taking advantage of the fact that the NDP is in a leadership race and he's banking on or he's betting on that the NDP won't pull the plug and therefore can be first out to say, "Oh my God, I can't support this. This is a terrible thing." And then the Conservatives saying the whole thing, which forces, and that the Greens won't support it. So therefore forcing the issue onto the NDP's plate, given that they are, and make the NDP again uncomfortable and have to take a decision that they will have a hard time justifying. Why did the NDP vote for an austerity budget? So Mr. Carney and Mr. Davies are probably talking about a thing or two that might be shiny that can be put into the budget that probably for workers, I would assume. So maybe some changes to the EI system or some actual policy, tax policy of some kind that helps workers specifically, given what the tariffs are, that the NDP can turn around and says, well, we don't really like the austerity and the other things, but it's an emergency situation and we care about workers and there is enough here for workers. So even though we don't really like this, okay, fine. And on that front, the Prime Minister and the NDP probably do have a lot of terrain d'entente room for agreement there, because the Prime Minister did run on making sure that he would take care of workers affected by the actions of the United States, and the NDP certainly want that. And while there has been some minor changes to EI in terms of qualification periods and amount of time that you can receive benefits, there has been no CERB type program or whatnot to keep people as whole as possible. And while there has been money for retraining and reskilling of workers that are affected, there has been nothing for actual workers who have had less time at work. There's nothing additional. There's been longer. Being able to collect EI longer, not having to wait as long to get your first check. But it's not like the amount that you can get from EI has been boosted. It's not like there's been a package that's in addendum to that to help people with the cost of living, given that they do not have their salaries. So I would expect something like that in the budget of some kind to help with that. Most of the money has been going to industries or for retooling. Like there was $500 million announced recently for Algoma Steel up in Northern Ontario. The mayor of Sault Ste. Marie, Mr. Shoemaker, has been doing an incredibly good job going around and working the media circuit and making the point that Algoma being so vital to the economy of the area, it going under or even activities being suspended at too high a rate for too long might make it hard for the city to recover. He was on Power and Politics the other day stating that that announcement of funding was very good in the sense that it would help uh, the steelmaker retool in certain ways. It seems that there's a lot of coal being used right now in the manner that, in the processes that they use for whatever products they create, and then that would allow them to move to an electrified system. Uh, I'm not sure if the money will help doing other things as well. I can go take a look at that actually. Um, because that would be rather important. But one of the main things was to help electrify, which, for those who are concerned about climate change, is another way that Mark Carney seems to be embedding climate change stuff into the overall policy in terms of climate competitiveness rather than working on interdictions, working on investments instead. Because if Algoma Steel is now going to be able to use electricity rather than coal, well, then that will definitely make their operations cleaner and make the products that they sell more attractive to a greater number of markets, particularly European markets, because there's going to be that carbon adjustment border measure at some point. But according to CTV, Ontario-based Algoma Steel Group will receive $500 million in federal and provincial loan assistance to help reorient its business to cope with the impact of U.S. tariffs. Ottawa's $400 million in financial assistance will come from the Large Enterprise Tariff Loan Program. The Ontario government will also provide $100 million to the Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario-based company. The federal government said in a statement the impact of U.S. tariffs on the steel sector is profound. Ottawa introduced the $10 billion financing program in March to support companies affected by tariffs. The loans are to help Algoma Steel continue operations, limit disruption to its workforce, and move to a business model that isn't as reliant on the U.S. Algoma CEO Michael Garcia said in a release that U.S. President Donald Trump's ongoing 50% steel tariffs have effectively closed the American market to Canadian steel. That has made some of Algoma's existing operations unsustainable and pushed up timelines for the company to transition to electric arc furnace steelmaking, typically a more energy efficient process than traditional blast furnaces. Algoma expects this transition to cost $987 million by completion. That turnaround is also expected to help Algoma produce more of the kind of steel Canadian industry needs. Ottawa has pushed to include more domestic steel in Canadian infrastructure and defense projects in a bid to support the beleaguered sector. Industry Minister Mélanie Joly said in a statement that the Algoma loan was about building resilience in Canada's steel industry for decades to come. The federal government said Algoma currently employs some 2,500 full-time workers. So that's from CTV. And just waiting to see here, looking to see here if there's any additional information from CBC here. According to Federal Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu, who made the announcement at the steel mill on Monday morning, the federal government has entered into a term sheet through its large enterprise tariff loan to provide Algoma Steel with a $400 million loan, and the Ontario government has agreed to provide $100 million under the same terms. So these are loans. Patty Hajdu said, our corporations are not immune to the kinds of attacks that we're seeing, nor to the changing technologies that are coming our way. As mentioned in the previous article, the loan is part of a $10 billion financing facility announced in March for large companies to help them fight the tariffs and countermeasures. It complements a slew of other tariff-related measures announced by the federal government for the Canadian steel industry, because there had been a previous announcement a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a little more than a month ago now. Standing in front of one of the mill's two electric arc furnaces, Garcia said the loan will provide much-needed assistance as the company transitions away from its coke oven steel production. Quote, the tariffs have taken our largest historical market and effectively closed it to us, he said. We have to adjust our production down, take costs down, and pivot to a future where primarily we are thriving on a Canadian domestic steel market. Additional details surrounding the loans, including interest charges, will eventually be released to the public, according to Garcia. He said the bar for public scrutiny and openness with the government is high, as the $500 million in funding comes directly from Ontario and Canadian taxpayers. But as long as the country's economy is thriving, so too will the steel industry, Garcia said. Quote, if you look at the future Prime Minister Mark Carney and the new government have been talking about, it's a future that involves more defense spending, more marine spending, and infrastructure spending, he said. Combine the government's stated preference that steel needs to be Canadian, that's going to result in a thriving domestic steel industry. According to Garcia, Algoma Steel's plate making business remains strong. However, there isn't enough demand for the plant's coil business. Quote, we're going to be reducing some of that production going forward, he said. We have to understand, what do we diversify to? Is it going to be beams, rails, or other forms of steel? That's the work we're doing now. Haidu said the loan announcement remains a significant investment in the future of workers in Sault Ste. Marie. Quote, I can't predict what's going to happen in the future, but I can tell you that we're all in this together. If there are layoffs for a period of time, the Canadian government will be there with tools on the training side, as workers may need to retool to different processes and kinds of production methods. Founded in 1901, Algoma Steel says it's now one of North America's leading manufacturers of hot and cold rolled steel sheet and plate products, and employs about 2,600 people in the city, which has a population of around 72,000. In July, the company said it had applied for a $500 million loan from Ottawa as it faces 50% tariffs on Canadian steel exports to the United States. In a news release at the time, the company said it's, quote, concerned with the significant impact the tariffs are having on its operations and outlook. So there we go. A little bit of extra support there, and was definitely needed. So, yeah, Prime Minister having some meetings. The Prime Minister will also have a meeting with the leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May. So it seems right now that the only two parties he's not specifically reached out to are the Bloc and the Conservatives. Maybe that will come over time, but we are at 32 days before the budget is supposed to drop. And usually this type of consultation with other parties starts beforehand. So it could very much be that the Prime Minister has chosen the route of efficiency, not talking to parties whose support he probably will not get, and then talking specifically to the NDP and saying, okay, what do we need to put in there to get your vote? And then deciding on whether or not that is going to be acceptable. Moving on. One more subject today. Danielle Smith is at it again with pipelines. We talked about this before when provinces were proposing projects for the major projects office. Danielle Smith had one project and one project only, a pipeline, and that was it. There was the Pathways project, but that is a means to an end to get a pipeline. But that's all. Even when specifically asked point blank by David Cochrane from Power and Politics, well, let's say there's not a pipeline. Is there anything else? Danielle Smith had nothing else. There's absolutely no other project of national importance whatsoever that she could think of for Alberta that would help Canada than another bitumen pipeline going through the north of British Columbia to get to a place where it has already been determined that it probably wouldn't be a good idea to send oil tankers. LNG tankers, no problem, because the potential for impact on the environment in case of a spill, I'm guessing, is less, but definitely not bitumen. But she doesn't hear that. So she's coming back with it, and she's doing something that is rather unique and interesting because, and this as well is another flip flop, because Danielle Smith made it very clear over the course of the summer that if there was another pipeline and it had to be paid for by the government or governments, that would be a failure. And we remember that Mark Carney very elegantly and deftly put the ball into Danielle Smith's court, that she's now trying to put it back in the federal government's court. She actually said that during her little press thing on Power and Politics. Well, now the ball is now in the federal government's court. No, it isn't, because the ball was put in your court to find a proponent for this pipeline, and without which there is no project, really. Right. And well, Danielle Smith is doing some things in Alberta that are making it difficult for her to find such a proponent. One supporting Alberta separation, even though she's claiming she's not, but she's bending over like a Cirque du Soleil contortionist to make that happen, is not helping. And of course, creating a situation in the province where you have to pay for COVID vaccines while your healthcare is going to pot, where you have the least well-funded education system in the world, not in the world, in the country, the lowest minimum wage in the country. Um, not great healthcare, not great education, the lowest minimum wage in the country, and a battle for separation does not create an environment in which companies would like to invest. So she's not exactly creating the winning conditions. And given that she knows she's not creating the winning conditions to find a proponent for it to get it on the list, and given that she has no identity unless she is fighting with Ottawa or fighting with someone, Danielle Smith is coming at it again with another pipeline fever dream that I don't think is going to work for her. But here we go. Premier Danielle Smith says Alberta is committing $14 million. That's government money that she said should probably not go to this, to a West Coast oil pipeline do over that hinges on First Nations getting on board early and Ottawa reversing a tanker ban that would make such a project unworkable on the northern BC coast. And there is absolutely no talk of eliminating the oil tanker ban because there's no tanker ban for LNG. And there is been no indication from any First Nations communities that they have changed their minds on this. This is according to Lauren Krugel of the Canadian Press. It's a project Smith hails as the fulfillment of a higher duty to humanity. Oh, girl, please. While her BC counterpart characterizes it as a half baked political gamesmanship. Quote, what stands before us right now is a once in a generation opportunity to unlock our wealth and resources and become a world leading energy superpower, Smith told a news conference in Calgary on Wednesday. There are billions of people around the world living in energy poverty who demand a higher standard of living. This is not just a question of Alberta's energy, it's a global moral imperative. Oh, girl. Get over yourself. The province is putting up $14 million to fund the early regulatory work. But Smith stressed Alberta taxpayers won't pay to build the pipeline itself. Oh, no, 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 no. Sure, sure. The hope is that Alberta's kickstart will instill enough investor confidence for the private sector to eventually take over and potentially for First Nations to take ownership stakes. But BC Premier David Eby told reporters Smith doesn't have a real project. Quote, Premier Smith continues to advance a project that is entirely taxpayer funded, has no private sector proponent, he said. Eby said he's still willing to work with Alberta on projects, quote, that have real private sector backing that aren't entirely taxpayer funded wedge politics. The proposal is to be filed to the new federal major projects office, which aims to speed along developments deemed in the national interest. A submission is expected in the spring of next year. So the government of Alberta, as a government, is pitching itself to will be pitching this project to the major projects office, with itself as a provincial government being the proponent for now. For she so is not able to find a proponent, she is going to label herself and her government the proponent, and to try to hold a knife at the neck of all of Canada and stomp her foot to get a pipeline on that list as a project that is somewhat uh, shovel ready or getting close to shovel ready, or a sure thing with a sure proponent, when they haven't even been able to finalize a route that the province and First Nations would agree with yet for such a project. But to get it on there, and she wants it on there by November or else, but she doesn't have a proponent. And she thinks that this is going to work for her. Alberta plans to develop the project with the backing of an advisory group that includes three major Canadian crude pipeline operators, Enbridge Incorporated, Trans Mountain Corp, and Southbow Corp. No company has stepped forward to actually build the pipeline. No route has been determined, but Smith said a pipeline should go to the port of Prince Rupert, British Columbia, an idea that has already been rejected. Um, Danielle Smith, in the interview with Power Politics, pointed to the three crude line pipeline operators who are willing to advise and say, when she was asked, "But you don't have a proponent?" Yes, but we have these three companies involved. And then it's like, yeah, of course, any pipeline company is going to be happy to be involved, to provide advice on a pipeline project, future pipeline project. But they're not lining up as proponents and saying that, well, look, we have these three companies that are so interested in our project that they want to provide advice, has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on their desirability to be a proponent for that pipeline down the road. But she's trying to conflate them and trying to spin that interest in being part of the advisory panel as being, see, it's real that there could be a proponent. It's still not real. 10 years ago, Ottawa imposed a ban on oil tankers along a segment of northern BC coast, spelling the end of Enbridge's proposed Northern Gateway pipeline to Kitimat, British Columbia, after years of intense environmental and First Nations opposition and court battles. Smith said Northern Gateway and its potential new iteration share a common goal, expanding the reach of oil sands crude into lucrative Asian markets. Quote, what keeps coming back is that this project that should have been what keeps coming back is that this is of the project that should have been built. This is the one that should have been built when it was first proposed, when it was Northern Gateway 1.0, Smith said. No, that's that's not what keeps coming back. That's what you keep bringing back. You're the only people saying that. Nobody else is. Heiltsuk Chief Marilyn Slett said there's no support for the pipeline or oil tankers among coastal First Nations members. Premier Smith's continued talk of oil pipelines and tankers and the risk of a catastrophic oil spill in BC's coastal waters is not nation building, said Slett, president of the Coastal First Nations. In fact, it risks the goodwill and support of First Nations for more realistic and economically valuable nation building projects in BC and beyond. And that's the part that has Premier Eby really pissed off. It's like, we have some real projects ready to go right now, and we do have the buy-in. Because we do not want to lose that. This is a project that doesn't help us with our other projects. Alberta Indigenous Relations Minister Rajan Sahni said she was calling First Nations leaders in Alberta and BC earlier this week, and the feedback was more positive than it would have been during the Northern Gateway era. Quote, what we've heard both from industry and Indigenous leaders is that Indigenous voices were not central to the process as Northern Gateway was being discussed, she said. The key piece of advice was to pick up the phone, go to the community, meet people where they're at, and tell them what it is you hope to do, and really listen to their concerns and do whatever you can to alleviate or mitigate, because government of Alberta has shown an extremely big talent in doing that when it comes to pipelines to the coast. The province provided supportive statements from the chief of the Fort McKay First Nation and in the oil sands region of northern Alberta and the president of the National Coalition of Chiefs. Quote, true partnership means listening to Indigenous voices, respecting our lands, and ensuring our people share in the benefits, said Fort McKay Chief Raymond Powder. Dale Swampy, president of the Chiefs Coalition, said oil and gas participation can be a way to drive economic reconciliation. Quote, we are happy that Alberta is leading an effort to get another pipeline to the West Coast, and we are especially happy that they have decided to engage with Indigenous nations in BC and Alberta right from the very beginning of the process. Smith said the tanker ban, along with other federal measures that have proven to be deal breakers on energy projects, will have to be addressed. Quote, I'm anticipating that they will either make a repeal of that legislation or acknowledge that the port that we need to export from needs to have some kind of carve-out, said Smith. She said the proposal will be a test of whether Canada works as a country. If we can't build with the collaboration of the federal government in between provinces, if it's everybody gets to get their products going to market except Alberta, then it's not a country. Except Alberta has put itself in a situation where it only has one project. So it's not about everybody getting their products going to market except Alberta, because everybody else has suggested multiple projects, but Alberta only has one: oil pipeline or nothing. If that project happens to be infeasible or unpractical, Alberta doesn't get any projects or products going to market as a result of the Major Projects Office, not because of anything Mark Carney did, not because of anything the Major Projects Office did, but because Danielle Smith personally had such an incredible lack of creativity and imagination that she was not able to come up with one other single project other than the pipeline. So what Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith is doing is betting it all on the pipeline, of course, and making that the only thing, and then holding a knife to the neck of all of Canada. If you don't approve our pipeline, then we're not a real country, rather than her coming to the table with 5 or 6 projects and saying, here, Canada, choose among these ones, and we'll get going to improve things in our province. She's she's only proposing one, and if you don't accept that, then it's all hell will break loose. So she's trying to create a situation of inevitability on a project that does not have a proponent and has no buy-in whatsoever from the province, the help of which they need to get it done, or the Indigenous community there. It's a very interesting strategy, one that is probably doomed to fail. But again, Danielle Smith doesn't really care about the project. She doesn't really want. I mean, she does care. She would love for it to happen. She'd be happier than a pig in shit. But the goal is to create another war. This project doesn't happen. Well, there you go. We need to separate, or we need to pass some type of weird law. That's action for action's sake. Once again, um, it's not serious. It's just not serious. Um, according to, let's see, CHEK News, Alberta, this is Ashlau Joannou of the Canadian Press talking about that coastal BC nation's objection to the project. The head of a group representing First Nations along British Columbia's coast says they will not support a new pipeline proposed by Alberta, and nothing can be done to change that. Marilyn Slett, chief counselor of the Heiltsuk Tribal Council and president of the Coastal First Nations Great Bear Initiative, said Wednesday that First Nations fought for decades to get the federal moratorium that keeps oil tankers out of their waters. Quote, as the rights and title holders of BC North and Central Coast and Haida Gwaii, we must inform Premier Danielle Smith once again that there is no support from Coastal First Nations for a pipeline and an oil tankers project in our coastal waters, Slett said moments after Alberta's premier announced her government will be pitching a pipeline to Ottawa. Smith acknowledged that laws including the tanker ban would have to be repealed or have a carve-out created, but said a new pipeline would unlock Canada's, quote, economic potential with Indigenous partners. First Nations and BC environmental groups and that province's premier lined up in opposition to the plan. Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, president of the Union of British Columbia Indian Chiefs, said in a statement that any proposal to, quote, ram a new oil pipeline through, quote, is a direct assault on the inherent and constitutionally protected title and rights of First Nations who steward these lands and waters. Quote, this is a blatant attempt to tear up the legislated federal North Coast tanker ban that defends one of the world's most pristine enriched coastal ecosystems from disaster. To even entertain this idea shows a profound disrespect for both First Nations law and the will of the people who live there, as well as a total disregard for the climate emergency, he said. So Danielle Smith is out there making friends. Smith told a news conference Wednesday that the proposal is expected to be filed in the spring of next year to the new Federal Major Projects Office, which aims to speed up projects deemed in the national interest. Alberta plans to develop the project with the backing of an advisory group that includes 3 major Canadian crude pipeline operators. And on that, Minister Tim Hodgson, federal minister, I think of energy, if I remember correctly, said that he has no problem with the provincial government listing itself as the proponent for the moment, or if it's creating a crown corporation to do this, sometimes that be the proponent, which I find a little interesting because the whole point was to attract private investment, and I'm not sure. At first, I would have assumed that the Major Projects Office would not accept or entertain any proposals that had the provinces as the proponent rather than somebody from the private sector industry. But it seems that that is not the case. Now, of course, this could be another situation of the federal government deciding, well, why pick the fight and try to put out an obstacle at this point for a project that's never going to happen anyway. So yeah, sure, go ahead. If you want to file as a province, go ahead. Sure, no skin off our teeth. Go ahead, do it. Might be the attitude here of the federal government playing the long game here on this one. Sort of like what the federal government's doing with the Golden Dome with the United States. Oh, sure, we're interested. Give us a call. We'll talk about it, knowing that it's never going to happen. BC Premier David Eby, who has criticized Smith for talking about pipelines without a private company interested in building one, said Wednesday that his government supports the tanker ban because, quote, because it is foundational to our ability to get some major projects done. To put that tanker ban at threat is not just a threat to our pristine coasts that so many British Columbians, including myself, value, but it is a direct economic threat to the kind of economy that we're trying to build in the country here, he said. There is no project, there is no bridge to cross unless the Alberta government and the federal Canadian government are committing billions of taxpayer dollars to build this project, and if that's the plan, then they should be transparent about it. Don't mistake my politeness for weakness on protecting our economy and our coast. Alberta Minister of Indigenous Relations Rajan Sawhney told the news conference she has spoken with Indigenous leaders in BC and Alberta about the project, and the responses were different from what you may have expected about 10 years ago, which we mentioned in the previous article here. The Coastal First Nations Great Bear Initiative includes 9 First Nations on the North Pacific coast. I told her, Slett said that she spoke with Sawhney to reiterate their opposition to a pipeline. I told her that there is no support from my community, from coastal First Nation communities, that our position has not changed, and that this is a project we cannot support and will not support. Slett said any potential proponent of the pipeline, including the Alberta government, should be, quote, on notice that the First Nations are not prepared to accept crude oil through their waters. Quote, this is a non-starter for us. We've said that before, and our stance has not changed and will not change for any other reasons, he said. We will use every tool in our toolbox at our disposal to make sure that our coast remains tanker-free. Jessica Clogg, senior counsel with the West Coast Environmental Law, which was involved in the fight to stop the Northern Gateway pipeline, said both federal law and laws passed by coastal First Nations ban crude oil tankers. More than 100 First Nations are signatories on the Save the Fraser Declaration that bans tankers from the Pacific North Coast through the Fraser River watershed and ocean migration routes of salmon, she said. I think any federal government would lift the existing oil tanker moratorium at their political peril. We have not seen oil tankers, super tankers on the coast. The fear and the concern about an Exxon Valdez-style oil spill is still very live, and it would, quite frankly, be both a political and economic mistake, she said. The Exxon Valdez ran around in Prince William Sound in Alaska in 1989 and spilled more than 41 million liters of crude, creating one of the largest environmental disasters in U.S. history. And they definitely do not want that to be a potential option. So we have that going on. And let's just see. Danielle Smith has also been trying to present things as in the sense that the West Coast provinces have some type of obligation to Alberta to help it get its resources to market. And it's like, no, they actually don't. Danielle, you can say that, but they don't. They don't at all. She just says things. David Eby, I'm going to show a clip here, has been described as taking the Alberta Premier to the woodshed on this issue when he was talking about it in his press availability yesterday. I watched it. The original press availability did not have anything to do specifically with this. I believe he was there to announce funding for a high school that was being built. And of course, questions came about that in the question and answer period. And David, in an answer period, was asked about it no fewer than 5 times, each time becoming a little more precise and firm with what it is that he had to say. So when they're talking about David Eby taking Danielle Smith to the woodshed. I'm going to present those responses here to you so that you can see the evolution. And this is over the course of about, let's see, 29 minutes. Where he starts and where he ends. So this would be the first one, kids and cubs.
I know one of the things you learn in grade 5 is about being good to your neighbor. Your neighbor in Alberta, Premier Danielle Smith, is expected this afternoon to announce they are starting a Crown Corporation to be the proponent for a new pipeline. In your estimation, what does the province of Alberta now need to do to engage with British Columbia around moving oil through our province to the coast near Prince Rupert?
Well, I guess, it's neighborly relations are crucial between Alberta and British Columbia. And that's a relationship that needs to go both ways. British Columbia has literally tens of billions of dollars of real private sector shovel-ready projects that are going to drive forward not just our economy here in BC, but the national economy at a time that the national economy is under direct threat and attack by Donald Trump. Now, the problem that we have is that Premier Smith continues to advance a project that is entirely taxpayer funded, has no private sector proponent, is not a real project, and is incredibly alarming to British Columbians, including First Nations along the coast, whose support is required for the success of the billions of dollars in real projects that I'm talking about. We need a major projects office at the federal level, not a major distractions office, not a major politics office, but an office that advances real shovel-ready projects that will move this economy forward in British Columbia and nationally. And what I am seeing from Alberta directly threatens that. So I am all for working closely with Alberta on electrical intertie that's going to drive down electrical rates for Alberta consumers. On the hydrogen sector, that is, we both need the federal government to assist us with getting hydrogen to market to build that economy. On other major infrastructure projects and projects that have real private sector backing that aren't entirely taxpayer-funded wedge politics. And that's my commitment to Albertans and to Canadians. We'll do that work with them, but it cannot be at the expense of major projects in British Columbia that are ready to go.
All right. So there you go, kids and cubs. David Eby making it relatively clear here that, does not, it's supposed to be a major projects office, not a major distractions office, that he has some projects that are ready to go right now, and that this proposal from Danielle Smith threatens it because, as he mentioned, foundational to those projects that are ready to go is that there will be no pipeline coming through that route. And then again, stating that, this is taxpayer funded partisan politics here. This is what he believes. And then, the way that the question was framed was a little loaded in that, well, it's important to be good neighbors. What are you doing to be a good neighbor? As what is Danielle doing to be a good neighbor? Keeping on putting British Columbia in the position to sabotage its own economy and its own projects for the sake of Danielle's. Right. So Danielle probably won't get the fight that she needs from the federal government on this because, again, Minister Tim Hodges says, yeah, sure, if you want to go that way, do it. Try it. See what happens. Try your luck. She's going to get the fight with David Eby. So either way, she's going to get a fight. And then, of course, it's going to be Mark Carney's fault or the Liberals' fault or Ottawa's fault for not forcing David Eby to accept Alberta's project. Right? So there's always a route to end up blaming Ottawa. But she's going to get the fight that she wants, the fight that she needs, because she can't exist. She has no identity if she's not fighting. All right. This is the second time that the Premier is asked about Danielle Smith's fever dream project. Let's see what it is that he has to say.
You would accept a pipeline to BC's North Coast? And is there a chance that the Prime Minister could give the go-ahead to this project without BC's consent? So what have your conversations been with the Prime Minister about whether or not it could go ahead if BC objects?
My message in the quiet rooms with the Prime Minister, with the Premier of Alberta, is the exact same as the message that I'm delivering to you here today. There is no project proponent. This is a taxpayer-funded initiative by the taxpayers of Alberta currently, proposed to also be the taxpayers of Canada through the publicly owned Trans Mountain Pipeline project as well. This pipeline project requires a tanker ban off the coast to be lifted if, hypothetically, a proponent was ever found. Now, that tanker ban is in place. It is foundational for British Columbians who value our coast. It is foundational for First Nations whose consent we have sought and obtained for literally tens of billions of dollars of major projects that are real, that are not taxpayer funded, that will drive forward the BC and the Canadian economy for years to come. And so the challenge that I have is that this proposal from the Alberta Premier for taxpayers to do this work comes at the expense of real private sector projects that are going to lift our economy and lift the national economy, and for no apparent reason. Other than one can only assume politics. And so all I can say is let's stay focused on real projects is what I say to the Prime Minister, is what I say to the Premier of Alberta. There's so much we can do together to improve the lives of Albertans and British Columbians and Canadians. And let's focus on those shovel-ready projects with real proponents that don't have to be funded by taxpayers.
Follow up, Katie?
Premier,
All right. So that is the second time that he's asked about it. The Premier, I will note here, is not stuttering when he is making these points. He is pretty clear-eyed and knows exactly what the time is, and is has no problem calling out Premier Smith on her game and what her tactics appear to be in this case. Now we go to the third time that he is asked about this, because clearly either the media are not satisfied with what they're getting, or they are actually liking what it is they are getting, and they clearly want more of it, because this is great, great, great television here. So let's keep it going. Mr. Eby say the third time that he takes Danielle Smith and her fever dream project out behind the woodshed to give it the old Yeller treatment.
Follow up, Rob?
Yeah, just turning back to the pipeline, you've expressed your point of view, and I'm just wondering, what would you do if there is something that seems to be gaining traction, whether it's from taxpayers in Alberta or otherwise? We've heard previous premiers like Premier Horgan talk about throwing every tool in the toolkit to prevent such a thing from happening. What's your position? What would you do to, prevent a oil tanker ban being lifted, or what can BC do to stop this? And also, if you wanted to weigh in on the assault of the neighbor by the ostrich farm, I'd welcome a response to that too.
Okay. So on the pipeline project, my priority as the Premier of British Columbia is to ensure that we're delivering projects that are going to lift up the BC economy, give families good, high quality, high paid jobs so they can respond to some of the cost pressures they're seeing, that's going to create revenue for public services that people need and deserve. The proposals being advanced from Alberta are just that. They are sketched out on a piece of paper. There is no proponent. It is entirely taxpayer funded. And the fact that there is not a private proponent, despite obviously huge willingness on the part of Alberta to subsidize this using tax dollars, should tell you everything you need to know about the reality of this project, which is that it is not a real project. The real projects that we have that are going to support families, support the province, support the country in this time of economic peril are put directly at threat by this proposal because this proposal causes the First Nations along the coast and many British Columbians, myself included, who value our coast, to believe that the coast is under threat, which it is not. And so I think I've said it 5 different ways. I'll say it again. Let's stay focused on the shovel-ready real projects and proceed in that direction. On the ostrich farm alleged assault, obviously this is incredibly alarming. I just hope that everybody can help work to take the temperature down here, and I hope this victim is okay, as okay as possible in the circumstances. Nobody wants to see violent attacks like this, and it doesn't serve any interest anywhere, regardless of where you are on the issue. And so I send my best wishes to her, and encourage everybody to maybe take a step back and a breath and focus on what really matters here.
Thank you.
All right. So a little bit again about the ostrich farm issue in British Columbia, going along with that. Not an issue that we've been paying too much attention to on the show because it's yet another one of those lack of virtue signaling thing coming from the other side, and there's just so many, and they flood the zone, and we've got much better and more important things to discuss than giving them more attention than they deserve at the moment, especially for just not wanting to row in the same direction as the rest of the team. All right. The 4th time that Premier Eby is asked about this. And again, Cats and Cubs, you will notice, as I keep on saying, not being subtle at all, not being ambiguous at all, being extremely clear. But hey, let's go.
Tariffs. I want to go back to the pipeline. Obviously, this pipeline has been in the news. This metaphysical pipeline has been in the news for some time now. But how much heads up did your office get about the announcement from Danielle Smith? One might argue that it sort of blindsided a lot of people. Obviously, as I said, we've had this discussion sometime, but can you sort of talk about the atmospherics between you and Premier Smith about the announcement that we're having today? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no sort of personal animosity or bad feelings between me and Premier Smith. She called me and gave me a heads up about her announcement. I asked her 2 very straightforward questions. Is there a private company advancing this proposal? The answer is no. Is there any private money advancing this proposal? The answer is no. To my mind, that means this is not a project that is in competition with the real multi-billion-dollar private sector projects being advanced by British Columbia. To Premier Smith, this is just a road bump. We have a very different perspective on that, and I understand why she would want to be talking about that. But I really feel that for the benefit of Albertans, for the benefit of British Columbians, we have a ton of projects that we can work on together, including projects that allow additional market access for oil producers in Alberta that don't involve the tanker ban or the North Coast, involve the existing publicly owned pipeline that all Canadians own right now. And so, those are the areas where I believe we should be focusing our attention. She's going to focus her attention where she chooses, and hopefully we can find a path forward to work together.
Thank you. Next, we'll head to Jeremy Haynes.
All right. So they're trying to smooth things over to show that there isn't a big war between them, just more of a difference of opinion or perspective on how they see the project. Danielle Smith seeing the objections as merely being a speed bump to get over. And of course, the Premier seeing it rather differently, as do members of the coastal nations, First Nations there. Finally, but clearly, the announcement, journalists wondering whether or not the announcement from Danielle Smith was a blind side, and clearly not, with Premier Eby stating specifically that he had been called and was given a heads up that she would be making that announcement. But still, regardless, still not on board. Now, the final one, and this is the one, if you've been seeing some clips on the internet, this is the one that you might have seen portions or all of, because this is the one where, after being asked for the fifth time, David Eby, um, whereas Danielle Smith is stomping her foot. I want a pipeline. Give it to me now, now, now. Again, like Veracruz salt in Willy Wonka. This is simply Premier Eby putting his foot down once and keeping it down, rather than repeatedly stomping it and having tantrum. This is Premier Eby, who is a soft-spoken man, being extremely firm on what is his position.
Justine Hunter from the Globe and Mail. Go ahead, Justine.
Hi, thanks. Premier, I think we continue to ask you questions about the pipeline because you have in the past kind of given a range of answers that indicate you might be willing to entertain an oil pipeline. So let me try again. You keep saying this is not a real project, but Alberta is filing an application. Will BC oppose that application, or will it be leaving that up to First Nations to oppose?
Well, Justine, I disagree with the premise of your question. We have supported the tanker ban from the very beginning because it is foundational to our ability to get some major projects done, including at the Port of Prince Rupert, including major export projects like LNG Canada that have facilitated a 4% increase in Canadian GDP. And to put that tanker ban at threat, it's not just a threat to our pristine coast that so many British Columbians, including myself, value, but it is a direct economic threat to the kind of economy that we're trying to build in the country here. And so when I've said, let's cross that bridge when we come to it, we'll see what the Premier comes up with, I'm being polite. I am being polite. There is no project. There is no bridge to cross unless the Albertan government and the federal Canadian government are committing billions of taxpayer dollars to build this project. And if that is the plan, then they should be transparent about it. Don't mistake my politeness for weakness on protecting our economy and our coast. Now, I hope that clears things up, but let's cross that bridge once she's got a proponent and the money.
Justine, do you have a follow-up for the?
Okay. If there was any doubt, I think it's been removed. Premier saying, when I'm saying let's cross that bridge when we get to it, I'm being polite. In other words, when he says, when David Eby says, let's cross that bridge when we get to it, it's like, bullshit, ain't happening, no fucking way, not a snowball's chance in hell. Stop talking to me about this. But that's not diplomatic language. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm being polite. It reminds me of that joke I heard. It was someone who's a lovely woman who had dinner parties, but she had the foulest mouth. And every time somebody would tell a story that she didn't believe in, I guess she'd just go, that's bullshit. Yes. And somebody took her aside and said, that's not, people are getting uncomfortable coming to your dinner parties. So she throws another one, tells everybody that she's changed, and people are there. Says, my daughter just got accepted to NYU. That's so nice. I just got a raise. That's so nice. This good thing is happening. That's so nice. And at the end of it, it's like, Lydia, what a wonderful dinner party. And wow, what an amazing change from you. This was very pleasant. How did you make that change? It was easy. Before I used to say bullshit. Now I just say, that's nice. That's so nice. And that is essentially what David Eby is doing there. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So saying, bullshit, not happening. Go home. Stop bothering me with this shit. So I'm being polite, and do not mistake my politeness for weakness. Now, David Eby, uh, also here, let's make it clear, is also getting a fight that he didn't ask for, but is definitely useful, given that despite all um, the utter shit show that is the Conservative Party of British Columbia at the moment, the both parties are still close enough in polling, uh, pretty much equal. And this type of thing gives an opportunity for David Eby to be Captain British Columbia here and score a lot of points that John Rustad certainly can't score, because he too would probably bend over backwards like a Cirque du Soleil contortionist in order to try to make this happen. But David Eby has the advantage of a full, clear runway on which he can take a very unambiguous position in defense of other projects, First Nations, keeping that region pristine, ecotourism, the whole kit and caboodle, with absolutely nobody there to encroach on his territory, on that turf. This serves politically David Eby very, very well. It serves Danielle Smith well, what she's doing with her core constituency, but him objecting to it as firmly as he has also helps him with a core constituency. So both premiers actually getting what they want and need, considering their political situations in this context. However, if we are gaming this out and looking at the long term, of the two, Danielle Smith is the one that's most likely to fall flat on her face as a result of it. She has the less tenable position and the position least likely to reach a positive conclusion for her and her fortunes. But she'll get one hell of a fight that can last a while in the meantime, and she'll be able to raise a lot of money off it and nail herself to so many crosses along the way. And yes, some comments from the Kits and the Cubs here talking about the recent decision from Imperial Oil in Alberta to, I think it was, cut 900 jobs, is it? Yes. ExxonMobil to cut some. Oh, yes, exactly. Earlier this week, Calgary-based Imperial Oil, which is majority owned by ExxonMobil, said it was cutting approximately 900 jobs, mostly in Calgary. There will be some job cuts in Newfoundland and Labrador as well. It would relocate other employees to Strathcona Refinery as well. ExxonMobil is slashing 2,000 jobs globally, and some of them will be in Newfoundland and Labrador. On Monday, we announced a phased restructuring plan that will ensure our long-term competitiveness, resulting in fewer positions in St. John's. ExxonMobil spokesperson Shelley Sullivan told CBC News in an email. She did not disclose exactly how many positions will be cut in this province, so that will certainly be an election issue in that province, given that there's an election going on. But yes, also that Imperial Oil job move will cut jobs in Alberta, according to Rukshar Ali of CBC News here. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says Imperial Oil plan to lay off roughly 20% of its workforce by 2027 is, quote, very disappointing. Once again, Danielle Smith is disappointed. Her constant feeling. I'm very disappointed. I'm so disappointed. Oh, it's very disappointing. Again, Danielle, nobody cares about your feelings. Just do your damn job. Laying the blame on Ottawa for reinforcing the need to build pipelines. The industry for the last 10 years has been hampered and hobbled by federal government decisions. If we can realize the aspiration of building our pipelines north, south, east, and west, doubling our production, then there's a lot of opportunity for people to be able to get reemployed in this sector. We do not need to build another pipeline south, Danielle. Especially not in this context. Calgary-based Imperial said Monday the cuts are part of a broader restructuring plan and would save the company about $150 million annually. Approximately 900 jobs, most of which in Calgary, will be lost. So Danielle Smith, his butt-kissing tour of the United States clearly has not yielded results for her. Quote, "This is what happens when you have uncertainty," Smith said, "and this is part of the reason why we have to work very quickly to get a resolution with Ottawa so that we can start building pipelines again." Yes, yes, because all the uncertainty in Alberta is being created by Ottawa at the moment. As the beaver slowly sips tea. Really? Come on, girl. Imperial Oil Chairman John Whalen said in a statement the restructuring and layoffs will ensure the company continues to deliver returns and value for shareholders. Quote, "We recognize the considerable impacts this restructuring will have on our employees and their families," Whalen said. "We are deeply committed to supporting our employees through this transition." In a news release, Imperial said it's leveraging technology and its relationship with its major shareholder, ExxonMobil, to continue to meet or exceed production targets. That means AI. The company also said part of the restructuring will see Imperial relocate most of the remaining Calgary positions to the Strathcona refinery in Edmonton in late 2028. While Smith points fingers at Ottawa, Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi says the blame on the UCP government. Quote, "We've got a government that is pandering to separatists, that is scaring away domestic and foreign investment. We now have the second highest unemployment rate after Newfoundland in the country at a time where the energy sector is not really under threat from tariffs," Nenshi said. "What we're really seeing here is a change and shift in the work of Alberta being left on the outside, and that is directly due to Danielle Smith and the UCP's policy, I believe." Yes, yes, Mr. Nenshi, you nailed it. Canada's Energy Minister Tim Hodgson also said he's deeply disappointed with Imperial's oil planned job cuts. Yeah, whatever. He said he's working to understand what went into the company's decision and the government will explore ways to support workers losing their jobs. Quote, "These are skilled, dedicated people who have greatly contributed to Alberta's energy sector and Canada's economy, and my thoughts are with them and their families as they receive this difficult news," he said on social media Tuesday. Those are words that should have come out of the mouth of Premier Danielle Smith. But she was too busy trying to set up her next war to actually care about the workers. In August, Imperial reported $11.23 billion in total revenue and other income during the second quarter, down from $13.38 billion in the same quarter a year earlier. Hodgson said it's his mission to make sure energy companies like Imperial stay prosperous as the government works to make Canada an energy superpower. Top U.S. oil major ExxonMobil announced broader cuts on Tuesday with plans to lay off 2,000 workers globally, about half of which are counted for the Imperial oil layoffs. So yeah, there we go. Let's see as well. This is not limited to Imperial or Exxon. Several major energy companies, including Chevron and ConocoPhillips, have announced thousands of job cuts in the past year to rein in costs while they contend with lower profits in the face of a worldwide slump in crude oil prices and strong competition from the OPEC Plus group of oil producers. Gee, it seems like Danielle Smith is not doing a good job at all when it comes to being an oil and gas lobbyist, masquerading as a premier. Another Calgary-based company, Cenovus Energy Incorporated, confirmed layoffs in May, while Suncor Energy cut about 1,500 staff in a streamlining push in 2023. Quote, "What Exxon and Imperial are doing is trying to be the lowest cost barrel in the oil sands and also a globally competitive. And so they aren't shutting in production. They have no intention of producing less oil," said Heather Exner-Pirot, the Director of Energy, Natural Resources and Environment at the MacDonald Laurier Institute. Hardcore in the bag for oil if you check out her Twitter feed. Definitely does not present a balanced and objective perspective. Charles St-Arnaud, chief economist with the Alberta Central, says the oil and gas industry is no longer what it was in 2014 pre-boom, and so the number of people employed in the sector has also been impacted. Quote, "The Canadian oil and gas sector doesn't live in a vacuum without being influenced by what's happening around the world. It's not just in Canada that investment in the industry is weak. We're seeing that around the world. The name of the game for the past decade has been how to drive efficiency out of current operations, and that's what we've seen. Companies have been cutting costs, and those job losses go into that vein. It's really that drive to efficiency that is reducing the headcount. How can you extract the same barrel at a lower cost? By paying people less to do it, by replacing them somehow with AI, let's say." St. Arnaud says that there's a need to start looking at the oil and gas sector with a different mindset, understanding that it's a mature industry now. Quote, it's no longer what I would call the startup phase of the late 2000s or early 2010s, where companies were building massive operations, thinking huge amounts of money, and they were not necessarily driven by how much it was going to cost. But now in the mature phase, you need to start thinking about the cost. How do you improve your profitability when you're at that kind of mature phase of your development? And that's really what I see the Canadian oil industry being at the moment. So there you go. Yes, things not going well for Danielle on that front. And I think it was Kit Grace in the chat when talking about the Bloc Québécois move had presented a perspective that I had thought of but forgot to mention with regard to Yves-François Blanchet's flip-flop. The first one was on deficits, but the second one was Yves-François Blanchet had made it very, very, very clear that he was giving Prime Minister Mark Carney up until the U.S. midterms to make some type of arrangement and, of course, to make sure that supply management was protected. And it seems that Yves-François Blanchet no longer cares about that commitment either, which is very interesting. Of course, around the time of the midterms would be probably just after the next Quebec provincial election, right when they get a PQ government. And maybe at that time, if polls were good for Parti Québécois, for the Bloc Québécois, he'd like to go and maybe get more seats. But if it wasn't, probably not a good time for him then. So, like I said, if Mr. Blanchet wants another election, now would be the best time between now and a good long while to be able to go. And maybe that's why he is making that play. But yes, thank you, Kit Grace, for pointing out that I had forgotten to mention that it's a major flip-flop from Blanchet in two ways. One, now claiming that he cares about the debt and deficit when he didn't really care about it during the election, and on his promise to ensure that there would be some stability of the Canadian government until at least November of next year. That seems to have gone by the wayside too. So again, Mr. Blanchet showing that his word does not have much worth. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really do appreciate it when you do. And you are influencers in your own circle. So please, kids and cubs, keep sharing our content and stating why it is that it resonated with you, because that would definitely mean a lot to us. Now, if you are on the go, kids and cubs, and you would like us to help you because sometimes you don't have time to watch the show, either live with the DAMFAM or on your own time, but you still want to remain informed about what it is going on, well, we're here to help. And so is the Ray Girl, who has sponsored our pod page, podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, with a hyphen between each one of those words, or you can scan that QR code that appears. And when you go to our pod page and click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the podcast bandwidth, our ears only version of the show, audiocast, then you can download it and take it with you. We are portable and lightweight. Therefore, you can take on the day and still keep abreast of what's going on. Get all the information and analysis that you need to be an informed and engaged citizen. It's win-win. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us, you can do so by grabbing your e-surfboard and making your way on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. That QR code that just appeared in the corner will bring you there, and Kits, Cassie, and Elaine would definitely approve of you going there and clicking our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us with the algorithm, and it makes us happy when we see our numbers go up too. So thank you so much. Yeah, we appreciate all the help. Now, kids and cubs, we have other needs for your help, because we do incur some costs in bringing the show to you. And we would be very grateful for your assistance, because our goal is to break even for the first time this year. And we are oh so close, but we need just a little extra help from you. And if you could provide that, we would be ever so grateful. And you can do so by making a contribution to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, where we try to keep our beaver moist day in and day out. Because a moist beaver is a happy beaver. And we all like happy beaver now, don't we? All right. So you can do that by donating via our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, or by scanning that QR code. And of course, if you happen to be watching on YouTube, we also have memberships and the super chat function by which you can donate. And we appreciate all of that. And if you are doing the Buy Canadian thing, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address that you can use to send a direct bank-to-bank transfer, keeping your transaction 100% Canadian, avoiding sending money through the oligarchy in the United States that supports Donald Trump, and thus ensuring we get 100% of your donation, which means we can do more with it. So your money goes further in bringing the good stuff that the Beaver Lodge, well, hopefully the good stuff that the Beaver Lodge has for you several times a week. So, kids and cubs, we would definitely appreciate that. Thank you so much for all of your support throughout the years and this year, and your support to come means the world to us. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is also where you can write to us to let us know what you think about the show, because if you can't donate financially, the gifts of your participation and attention are the ones that matter to us, and we love to hear from you. So do let us know what you think, or offer us some guest suggestions, or like we said, if you have a little home-based business or know somebody who does, or if you are working with a community group and you have an event that you would like to advertise, we have very, 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 very attractive rates, and we've got definitely something. Even if all you have is $35 or $50, we can do something for you to get the word out. So, kids and cubs, whatever you, if you think that we can be of help to you in getting more butts in the seats for your events, or if you have a home-based bookkeeping business, or if you're selling some art or crafts on Etsy or stuff of the sort, we're there to help with that. So please write to us, and let's see what we can do to work together. We have definitely an audience of engaged citizens who are definitely looking to buy and support Canadian, and you would have definitely a good market, and one that's enthusiastic here on our show. All right, kids and cubs, because democracy is something that you do remember, forever-canadian.ca. That's the website you go to if you're in Alberta and you want Alberta to remain in Canada. There's an effort to put a question to that effect on a citizens' initiative ballot, but 294,000 signatures are needed, and all of them need to be witnessed. And Forever Canadian is doing the good work of making sure that happens. So if you would like to find out where there is a pop-up signature location, please go there. If you are mobility impaired and want to see if there's a team that can come to you, go there. If you want to become a canvasser to collect signatures, go there. And if you support the work that they are doing, and they do require some money themselves as well to help with that, that's where you would go also to make a donation. So forever-canadian.ca, your one-stop shop to keep Canada a nation. So there you go. All right. Other things, of course, there's an election in Newfoundland and Labrador. So please find out about your candidates and call elections Newfoundland and Labrador to see if there's a way that you can work at a polling station, because they will definitely need some bodies there. And that election is, of course, October 14th, coming up really soon. Yeah, pay attention to that. And of course, if you're here in Canada as well, we have the ourcommons.ca petition for more honesty for our politicians, and with consequences definitely with teeth for them. For those who do not, please go to ourcommons.ca and look for petition E-6679 on ethical issues. We are at 27,424 signatures. Let's get that number as high as we possibly can to send a message that is very clear that this is something that we would like. Kids and cubs, words of wisdom. Don't beat your kids. Okay, next. It could be a tough world. Clearly, it needs to be said. So, yeah, don't beat your kids. Kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, at the count of 3, if I may, would you please say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's little cock-a-doodle-doo. I hear it. I hear it. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. And before Kids and Cubs, I had remembered that yesterday I had promised to show you a quick clip about the Canada Post strike and how it could affect elections that happen to be going on, municipal elections in Newfoundland and Labrador at the moment, and the Liberal leadership race on Prince Edward Island. So I do have that clip for you. I will play that, and then after it's over, I will be gone like magic. So Kids and Cubs, quick little 2 minutes, but very important information.
In Alberta, there are two big things happening at once: a Canada Post strike impacting the country, and civic elections across the province later this month of voters like mayors, councillors, and school trustees. At the moment, it's looking like the strike will impact special ballots and voter cards.
We've been kind of contingency planning related to a Canada Post strike potential happening since the spring.
Let's start in St. Albert. Voting cards have yet to go out. Those would include the city's 5 voting station locations, and they won't be mailing out special ballots. Voters only have one way to get them.
We're making arrangements for them to pick up the special ballot packages in person, and then asking them if the strike is still, continuing on election day, to make sure that they drop those packages off to us in person by the deadline.
In Red Deer, special ballots will be delivered, but voters will have to send them back or drop them off in person. Drop boxes can't be used.
Because the legislation doesn't allow that. If someone uses one of those, it's required to be a rejected ballot. So they want to make sure they either courier it to us or they bring it down in person.
In Edmonton, election organizers say special ballots will be sent out through other delivery services, but voters will be able to switch to a pickup option as well. Some rural municipalities, like the town of Beaver Lodge, might have minor election impacts, aside from general implications of how they receive mail.
We don't have mail-in votes in Beaver Lodge, so it's a small enough community. We don't have to worry about that. But there's things like advertising and whatnot for local candidates. They're not going to get done because the mail's not going to get out.
Voter cards, which indicate where to vote, may not make it to voters in time for Election Day. Most municipalities will have that information available online as a backup. Travis McEwen, CBC News, Edmonton.
So there you go, Kids and Cubs. That was how it affects elections in Alberta, because they also have municipal elections going on. Apologies, I thought it would be the one for Newfoundland and Labrador as well. But I would be guessing here that some of the provisions in those other provinces would be similar if you were doing that. That you would have to pick up those packages before and try to bring it in personally, which of course definitely affects the ability for convenience when it comes to that. All right, kids and cubs, that's all I have for you today. I am off, and we will talk to you tomorrow. And tomorrow I will hopefully be able to tell you who our secret special guest is, because that interview will be in the can, and I no longer will have the opportunity to jinx it. So I'm very much looking forward to share that information with you. So stay tuned. All right, and I'm gone.